Hello, Obooters from around the world. My name is Arihaan. I'm 11 years old and I live in Gurgaon, India. Welcome to our Oboot Zoom session where me and my co-host Amos, who is 11 years old and lives in Paris, France, will be interviewing our guest changemaker Alison Smart, who's from Boston, Massachusetts. Alison is the executive director of Probable Futures. She works with leaders across science, design, culture, technology, and business to develop beautiful, resonant, and useful climate change tools and resources. Alison's work links to several sustainable developments, including Goal 13, which is climate action. Amos and I will ask Alison about her background, her journey, her work, her skills, and her impact. We hope that you guys will enjoy the session, and I will now start with our first question. So, Alison, can you please tell us a little bit about you and what you do for work?
Sure, I'm happy to, and thank you for talking with me today, Arihaan and Amos. So I run an organization called Probable Futures, and Probable Futures is an online educational tool that helps people build their literacy or their understanding of climate change. And day to day, that means that I help design the site and build the site. I've written some of the material on the site, and I work with scientists and designers and software developers and historians in order to build these resources. And those resources include stories and articles and things to read and look and explore related to climate change. And it also includes interactive maps. And in the interactive maps, you can go almost anywhere in the world and see what the potential futures hold at different levels of warming of climate change. So you can zoom in to Paris, or you can zoom into your location in India and just have a look at what kind of climate change may mean for different weather patterns. And so day to day, I work with all of these experts and I bring together all of this information and help kind of package it and present it in a way that average people, normal people like me who are not any of those things can kind of understand all of it and get something out of it and kind of develop skills that we need to address climate change.
That's amazing. Amos, now you can ask your question.
What are you mostly trying to solve of climate change? Like what is your goal more specifically? What aspects are you trying to get rid of?
Yeah, so we're trying to build kind of large scale understanding of climate change so that all different people of all in different communities and who work in different industries have kind of the fundamental knowledge that they need to work on solutions. So we have a lot of people around the world who are now working on clean energy or water conservation or coastal resiliency, all kinds of, all of these solutions that we have to address climate change, which is great. And since we haven't really had to worry about climate change much before this, it's really important that all the people who are working on those solutions have a basic understanding about climate change, what it means, kind of where it could go. So they kind of have the basic training for that. So that's one thing is really just education on the climate and education on our Earth systems and how wonderful they are, frankly, and how much they give us on a day-to-day basis. And then the other thing is to make science, especially climate science, available to everyone in the world. So climate scientists have been working on this issue for 40 years, and they've built up all of this information, all of this data that could be really, really helpful to people, but it's not always really accessible to everyone in the world. So that's why we built this, the map tool that we have, and that's why we made it global, so that anyone, anywhere could access it and have and get something out of that climate science, something personal. So get out of that climate science, you know, an understanding of how climate change may affect their specific place where they live, so that they can be a part of developing solutions to address climate change at a local level and also at a global level. So really it's about translating climate science, putting climate science in the hands of people everywhere in the world.
That's very smart. So my next question is, what was your childhood like, and what kind of games did you like growing up?
That's a great question. My childhood was, I grew up in kind of the country. I grew up in a town that had a lot of farms, a lot of cows, and a lot of woods too. I actually grew up in a log cabin, and we heated our log cabin with wood from, you know, the local area. So I had a childhood that was very, very close to nature. And so I played in the woods a lot. I played outside a lot. You know, my mom liked to garden, so I would play in the garden with her. And so it was very outdoorsy. I liked to do sports, but it kind of more like easy sport, like straightforward sports, like run. I like to run a lot. I like to play basketball. But mainly I just liked to be outdoors and, you know, swim in lakes in the summer and hike in the summer, and even, you know, hike through the snow in the winter. So yeah, that's what my childhood was like. I also, we grew up going to church a lot. So I think, you know, early on in my childhood, I, you know, was involved in doing service and learning about service of your community, in service of other people. So it's something that I knew that was important to me very early on in life.
Yeah, I can totally agree. I love playing basketball and I love being outdoors.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amos.
Yeah, I really like to play outside a lot too.
Yeah, there's nothing like fresh air, is there?
So my next question will be, what does your job look like every day?
Yeah, my job is a little bit different every day. Some days I meet with a group of scientists and we'll review some work that they've been doing, and we'll have conversations about, okay, is this work, is this something that we should include on Probable Futures? Is this work something that people really need to know and understand? The people who are addressing climate change, you know, on the ground every day? And if the answer is yes, then we talk about how we should present it so that people really understand. I mean, science sometimes has a lot of really technical language that, you know, people who are not in the sciences don't necessarily understand. So we need to kind of find words that are more recognizable for the average person. And then sometimes I work with a group of designers where we'll look at all different color palettes for the maps that we do. So we want to find a color palette that is beautiful and that kind of represents how beautiful the information is, and also helps people have a better understanding of what they're seeing on the map. And then some days I talk with other change makers around the world, and I ask them how I and Probable Futures and the resources that we've developed can best help them in the work that they're doing to address climate change. So really the purpose of Probable Futures was to give, again, people who are addressing climate change every day, the tools in their hands. So I spend a lot of my time meeting other change makers, meeting people who are working in different countries all over the world, different cities all over the world in different ways. Like some people that I meet are they're in the government. Some people that I meet are starting businesses. Some people that I meet work for a humanitarian nonprofit. So sometimes my days are just filled with listening to other people and hearing what their needs are and figuring out how I can best support what they're doing. So I'm lucky that I have a job that, no 2 days are ever the same. And I get to just spend my time with really, really different people every day, which is one of my favorite parts about it.
So, Alison, I love my neighborhood, but there are certain things like waste management that need to be fixed. So, I wondered, what does your neighborhood look like?
My neighborhood, I've ended up living in a place that's kind of a lot like where I grew up. So I live close to the woods. So where I live, our water comes from a well under our house. So I think a lot about how much rain we're getting, and if there's a drought and if we need to conserve our water use. We also have solar panels at our house, which gives us the energy to run our household. I have 2 kids and a husband and a dog. So I have 5 beings living in this house. And of course, we need energy to do that. Everyone does. And so we do that by using solar panels. So I pay a lot of attention to how much sun we're getting and how many clouds we're getting, how many days are rainy days. And so where I live is near the coast. So I do think about things like coastal storms. I don't anymore, but I used to, for some part of my life, I lived in Miami, Florida. And there are hurricanes that sometimes hit Florida. And when I lived there, I lived through several big hurricanes that were, had a lot of impact. So when I lived there, I thought a lot about being prepared for hurricanes. And, the more prepared that we were, the better, the better we were able to get through it without too many problems. So yeah, I think about these things in terms of risk management, as you said, Arihaan, but I also think about them in terms of like how amazing it is that we have these things, how wonderful it is that we can live in a place where there's regular precipitation, regular rain that we can collect in a well and have when there's not enough precipitation. I think about, how lovely it is that we have enough sun and enough clouds to be able to give us all of those things. So, so I think a lot about how lucky we are that the earth and nature really provides for us in so many ways, that we don't often take the time to just recognize and appreciate.
You are still very lucky to live near nature.
Yeah. It is very nice. I enjoy taking walks in the woods with my dog.
Amos?
So, what are your interests outside of work?
That's a great question, and it actually has a little bit of to do with the story of how I got to where I am in work. I love music. I love theater. I love the arts. I love anything creative and beautiful that humans make up with their minds. I said earlier that I grew up going to church a lot, so I sang in choirs a lot, and I really grew up just love singing and love music. And I ended up going to school for music. When I went to university, I went for music and theater, and I ended up working in music and theater. And then I kind of moved into the sciences, moved into climate change because I cared a lot about climate change. But I also found that because I had this background in kind of creativity, I was able to take that creativity and use it to help scientists translate their work in really beautiful ways and in ways that kind of connected with people in the real world. And so, you know, I work in science to some extent now, but outside of work, I still really love to listen to music. I love to see dance performances. I love to see live theater whenever I can. And I like to watch TV. I think there are wonderful television programs. There are wonderful movies that really have just amazing creative thinkers behind them. And yeah, I just love to celebrate really anything that's creative. I also still like to run. And I do yoga. So I still like to exercise a lot.
That's very interesting.
So, Alison, what is the coolest thing that you've ever done in your job?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I mean, I've been lucky that I've been able to meet people like you. Meeting people like you is the coolest part of my job. We all live in specific places, Paris, India, Massachusetts. But I love about my job that I get to connect with people all over the world. And sometimes I do that by traveling. I don't travel as often as I used to anymore. But like, for example, in 2015, when the Paris Agreement happened, I was in Paris. I was at that COP, they call it, where they do these negotiations. And that's just a really amazing thing to have been a part of. This week, I met someone who's from Kenya and working to bring down car emissions in Kenya and working to build more resilient communities in Kenya. And, I get to spend time with people who have lived in really different places, lived very different lives than me, and I just get to learn from them, and I get to enjoy who they are as people. And I think that's something that's very special about our modern world, is that we have the ability to connect with people so far away from us and learn from them and take some of those learnings into our own life. So that's, if it weren't for the kind of work that I do, I don't know that I'd be able to connect with so many different people, and it makes me really, really happy, and it just really fulfills my heart and soul.
So my next question is, how do you use technology and science in your work?
A lot. So can I share my screen? Can I show you some things?
Yeah, sure.
Show you a map?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, here we go. It's taking a minute to load for some reason. But so this is a really good example of technology and science working together and working to understand both sides. So I work with, like I said, I work with scientists, and I work with people who build softwares and designers. And without all of those people, we would never be able to get a map and a tool that looks this beautiful and that is as that works as well as this does. I can show you around a little bit. But we had a lot of back and forth. We had a lot of discussion about how to take so what is behind these maps is climate model data. So it's these big climate models that climate scientists have developed, and it's an enormous amount of data. It's data that's run on big supercomputers, and we would never be able to just take all of that data and put it into a map like this. We have to, first of all, build a bunch of software behind the scenes that can take some of that data, and then we have to figure out how to kind of translate the data from one place to another. So that's how I use technology and science. I'll mention one other thing here. So if you zoom in to place in India here, Arihaan, where did you say you were from?
Gurgaon.
Okay. I'm not sure where that is.
Near
Near New Delhi?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. I won't take up too much time trying to find that here, but we'll look near New Delhi. Let's see. Let's look at something like total annual precipitation. So this is the total amount of rain. Is this where you are?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so total annual precipitation. So we can see here, this is again climate model data that, we're at about 1 degree of warming right now. And at 1 degree of warming, around your area, you're likely to get something like 21 millimeters more precipitation every year. And in a really, and in a drier year, you might get something like 31 millimeters less precipitation. So this is the kind of thing that we wouldn't be able to just plop climate model data, like normal people would never really be able to understand it, but that we can translate it here and kind of show Arihaan how things are going to, how, total amount of rain is going to change over different levels of warming. And what that means is that people in your community then can plan for that, can say, okay, if we're going to get more precipitation on a regular basis, how can we make sure that we capture all of that precipitation? How can we make sure that we, use it and distribute it equitably? so this is a good example of a combination of science and technology coming together in a way that people then can understand it and use it.
Ah,
It's a very nice project.
yes.
So,
So, my next question is, what did you study to be prepared to do this work?
yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, I studied music. So I didn't go and get formal training in these subjects. I got kind of just a good education. I just got a good education of a lot of different things, and I chose to focus on music. And then when it came time that I had the opportunity to work in science, I was able to find resources about climate change and really learn as much as I possibly could about the science. So I'm not a scientist. I didn't have formal training in it, but I still, as a regular person who's interested in music, was able to really learn this information to the extent that I could help other people learn it too. I wish back then when I did that I had something like Probable Futures to learn from. But at the time I read scientific papers and I read books and I read articles, and it took me a long time, but eventually, I was I learned a lot enough to be able to both interact with scientists and then help other people understand that. So having that experience was one of the big motivators for creating Probable Futures, so that new people who are coming into this space and who want to work on climate change can get a really credible, reliable, comprehensive foundation of information about climate change, so they can best work on it and do their best work.
That is quite interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. So, is there somebody who inspires you, and can you tell us about them?
Sure. So many people inspire me. Like I said, I'm so lucky to work with lots of people and to know people like the people who started Oboot. But I guess I'll say that my children inspire me, because I see how they just how interested in the world they are, how much they care about other people around them. And because they live in a more modern world than I did, they can see people and understand stories of people all over the world, and they care a lot about kids all over the world, even though they've never left this country. So I think my kids inspire me because I just believe in them, and I believe in you, that you're all going to kind of build on this foundation and keep on making a better world every generation. I really, really believe that each generation makes the world a little bit better in different ways. And so, I'm inspired by my kids. Elsie and Kellen are their names.
Okay.
So, my next question is a bit interesting. The question is, how do you make money?
Yes. Well, so I chose to actually, raising money has been a big part of my career. So like I said, I've always been really interested in service. I always knew that I wanted to work in nonprofits. I always knew that I didn't want to go just like work at a business. There's, lots of people do that in really great ways. It just wasn't for me. But change makers and, people who are doing social impact work and people who are, doing service oriented things need resources and need money to meet their needs, of course, but need money to do their work. So I have done a lot of fundraising in my career. So all of the organizations that I've worked for, I will write grants. I will ask people who have a lot of means, I will ask them to give donations. And those donations go to the organizations that I work for. And that means that we then can pay people to work there, and we can pay what we need to do the kind of work that we do. So everything that I've done in my career has been paid for by the generosity of people who know and understand the importance of sharing the wealth that they have. And so I help them to understand that, and I help them see the impact of that. And so, that's how all of the organizations that I've worked with have been funded. So there are lots of different ways to make money, personally, to meet your own needs, but also to fund the things that really matter to you.
Okay. So my next question is, what inspired you to do this work?
Well, the first thing that inspired me to do this work was just recognizing that it didn't exist. So this, I was working with scientists, and like I said, I had to do all of this kind of self-education in order to understand climate change and understand climate science. And I was seeing firsthand just how much information that scientists were creating and how little of it was being translated in a way that would really help people use it. And it was there, like that global map that I just showed you, all of that information was just sitting in these big supercomputers, and scientists were using it a lot. And, even some non-scientists, but people that had to be really, really knowledgeable about those supercomputers and about the data that came out of it. But it's just like, that's not scalable. That's not going to reach, everyone that we need to reach with climate change. So really what inspired me to do this was the fact that it didn't exist and it needed to exist, and that so many people around the world could use this in order to live better lives and in order to address climate change.
That's very interesting.
Thanks.
Now that we're concluding, I have one last question for you, Alison. Do you have any advice for a young person who wants to become a change maker?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a very good question. I guess my advice would be to there are people out there who will help you, is one thing. So if you're interested in being a change maker, you're probably already really passionate and you probably already really care a whole lot. You don't need me to tell you to follow your dreams, because most change makers just feel like they don't have a choice except to work on these things that they really care about. And I would say that there are just a lot of people in the world who will feel that passion and feel your energy and feel how much you care about things. So just don't be afraid to share it, and don't be afraid to ask for what you need in order to do that work, because there are people out there who will help you with it. Will they say yes every single time? No, of course, that never happens, but there will be those people out there who really believe in you, and the only way and can help you in lots of different ways. None of us can do anything by ourselves. So just don't be afraid to share your passion and to ask for support.
Thank you, Amos and Alison, for the great discussion and for all the things we learned today. Thank you, Obooters, for listening to this interview. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can hear about upcoming sessions with other changemakers. Please also tell your friends about Oboot and share our social media links with them. And last but not least, go to oboot.co to learn about opportunities to collect digital badges and help us plant trees. Thank you.